Does this sound familiar? You're writing a big important scene in your book, and although the pages are flowing and the characters are acting, the scene feels flat. It doesn't seem big enough or important enough, and you can't quite figure out why. Nothing's really working with what should be a fabulous scene, even though it is a strong goal at the center. You think, hey, I've got a great goal. What's the problem with my scene? Maybe it's a lack of motivation. It can be a pretty common problem for writers to not have enough motivation for their characters. They know what their characters want, but they don't always know why, or the why isn't big enough or important enough. That's what motivation is in simplest terms. It's the why, the reasons behind what the characters do. Some people will figure out the main reason, like he wants to find the girl to give her an organ transplant because she's dying. That's part of the plot behind the movie 7 Pounds, but they don't go any deeper than that. And with motivation, you have to go deep in order to get it right. You really need to be able to see inside your character's head to understand the full reasons why they're acting the way they are and making the choices that they are. The deeper why in 7 Pounds is that Will Smith's character feels hugely responsible for a massive car wreck that killed several people. His actions resulted in deaths, and he feels like the least he can do is give back his own life to atone for theirs. Wow, I really care, right? You can sympathize with him, even root for him as he embarks on his quest. His motivation is pure and deep, and most of all, emotionally driven. In the movie Shrek, his motivation to get his swamp back isn't just about the fairy tale creatures who've been banished there and are annoying him. It's about his need for privacy and peace, because when Shrek is out in the world, people literally try to stab him with pitchforks. He's rejected everywhere he goes because he's an ogre. And getting his swamp back is really about protecting his heart from more hurt. Great motivation is what makes a show like Lost, for instance, so interesting and what made it such a huge hit. The writers of Lost did a lot of pre-planning before they started writing, and they knew the motivations for all of the characters' actions. Those reasons weren't obvious in the scenes right away, but you, as the viewer, knew there was something more than what they were showing. There'd be a word, an action, a reaction, something that would clue you into the fact that there was a lot more underlying what the characters were doing. That's the thing with motivation. You, as the author, should know all the reasons your characters are doing something, but you don't necessarily have to put them all on the page at the same time. You can hint at the reasons, leave the reader guessing a little, layer them in and let the reader uncover those layers as they flip page by page by page. The best motivations are also ones that we can all relate to and ones that have huge stakes for the character, like saving another person's life or their own. Like it's hard to feel sympathy for a character who wants to kill the neighbor because the neighbor's petunias are encroaching on his lawn, right? Like that doesn't work in real life, nor should it work in court or in your book. You can, however, feel sympathy for someone who wants to kill his neighbor because the neighbor's a child molester who attacked his child. That's the kind of visceral reaction we can all relate to. We wouldn't necessarily take the same actions, but we can understand that motivation. In Disturbia, for example, Shia LaBeouf's character starts out just curious about the neighbor next door. It's like a game to find out what this guy is up to. Things take a turn for the personal when the neighbor starts to threaten Shia's mother. Shia loves his mother. She's all he has, and he'll do whatever it takes, including kill the neighbor, to protect her. As the movie goes on, you can see his motivations shift as the threat becomes more personal and more emotionally driven. As a side note, you'll see me reference a lot more movies rather than books in my work when I teach people, because most of us have seen more of the same movies than read the same books, and it's just a little bit more easier to understand. Plus, movies are great about show, not tell, which is something that I cover in writing compelling fiction with both examples and exercises for you to learn how to do it, as a side note. Anyways, as you're planning your book, do some thinking ahead of time to really look at what deep motivations your characters could have for their goals. Here's a few questions that can get you started. What motivation would make your character support or tell a lie? What would make them steal from another person or from a loved one? What would make them do something unspeakable or impossible? And most of all, what motivation would make your character face his or her deepest emotional fears? You see a common theme there, it's emotion. That's where a lot of this really comes in with the connection for the reader. If you use these questions as a backdrop, you can come up with motivations for nearly any goal in a book. You bring it back to the character's personal choices, needs, and emotions, and those that are around him and important to him. There are those universal truths that we can all relate to: protecting your family, the innocent, saving a child, saving your own life. And those are the kinds of things that work for motivation as well. In Sophie's Choice, for instance, the novel and the movie, it's done brilliantly. Her goal at the beginning seems horrible: choose a child that will be murdered. But the motivation to save one child, she must sacrifice the other, or both children will be killed, is so strong the reader's heart is torn. You're invested in Sophie's decision from the very start. In 7 Pounds, for example, Will Smith puts the people he meets through a series of tests designed to be sure that they are good people, the kind who will appreciate such a huge gift. For a large portion of the movie, we don't really understand why he's doing it. We see his actions and know there's something that he's not telling everybody or telling the viewer. It takes almost the full movie to figure out all the reasons behind his actions. There's hints, little gestures, reactions, and words that tell you this is hugely important to him. But again, the viewer keeps listening and watching just to find out. Would the movie have worked as well if Will Smith's only reason behind finding organ recipients was because he needed to stock the shelves at his Organs R Us warehouse? I don't think so. That's really not what viewers are going to want to tune into or what's going to make them talk about the movie later. The deeper motivation of wanting to atone for the lives he took, of needing to feel worthy himself before he dies, creates a far more compelling story. His motivations are strong, they're noble, and even as we watch him take his own life, we're rooting for him and supporting him and hoping it'll work out. You can also make a character do anything, like kill his own wife to save his son, which is the plot of the box, as long as it's properly motivated. Back to Lost. Sawyer wants to kill a man. At first, we aren't entirely sure why. We do know he killed one man in Australia, who turned out to be the wrong man. And we see that Sawyer carries this letter around for all the time, and it's very important to him. As the story goes on, you find out that this man is the one who murdered Sawyer's parents. And when that moment comes where he can kill that man in real life, it becomes pivotal. Does he want revenge or escaping from the island more? When you're figuring out your character's motivations, dig deep to find their emotional reasons. We all make decisions based on things that have happened to us in our past. Traumas, failures, risks. Those are the things that shape us as human beings. Like Clarice, the FBI agent in Silence of the Lambs. If she hadn't had the past she had with the slaughtering of the lambs, she might not be as well suited for dealing with Hannibal Lecter. Her past creates in her a strong need to protect the innocent and rescue them. And that forces her to overcome her fears and face Hannibal and his questions. In short, the motivation is the because in the scene. There should be multiple reasons, i.e. multiple motivations, because that helps deepen your character in your scene and also is a lot closer to how real life works, which makes it more believable and more relatable to the reader. In our own lives, we all have multiple reasons for doing things. Like if you're going to go grab a cookie out of the kitchen, you have multiple reasons behind that. The more those reasons can stem from deep-seated emotional needs, the more compelling your scene will be. Motivation is also a key factor in building the relationship between the character and the reader. And when the reader's connected, she cares. And when she cares, she doesn't put the book down. Instead, she rushes to buy the next one in the series and tells all her friends to start reading your books. Hey, if you want more tips on how to write a book that knocks your reader's socks off, then pre-order Writing Compelling Fiction today up there on Amazon. It's filled with everything I've learned from publishing 80 books in 24 countries and in 3 genres. You can learn the secrets of unforgettable books from a New York Times bestselling author, that's me, and make your next book so compelling that people can't put it down. I've included all of my hints and secrets along with some scene analyses and some writing exercise and everything you need to write the most compelling novel possible. So pre-order Writing Compelling Fiction today and stay tuned because I'll probably do another video down the road.